Alrighty. Welcome to episode 2, Archie. This is a bit of a distinct change from the lithium mining and everything like that, but it still sort of revolves around sustainability.
Still following that sustainability aspect that we're trying to look at. So, today we're going to look at some of the supermarkets they're abusing in a way the use of organic labeling. So, we're going to look at how families and consumers are being misled by these supermarkets through greenwashing and whether they're paying the price for it. So in Australia, but all throughout the world, big supermarkets like to use a term called greenwashing, which is when you label things as organic, even though they might not actually be, so that you can push up prices and make it look like a much more premium product. Yeah. So
maybe we get into the issue first and then go into solutions and how it affects markets.
Yeah, definitely.
Like that. Okay, perfect.
So as I said, these supermarkets are falsely labeling these, like a range of products as organic, whether that be through foods or like even things like home goods that are recycled products made using recycled plastics, things like that.
Not necessarily entirely true.
Exactly. Yeah. And because, especially in Australia, there's a very loose definition on domestic products of what is organic, it means that they can sort of do what they want with it and push up their prices and make the consumers, pay the premium for these organic products.
And this is becoming quite a large issue of market failure, particularly in Australia's supermarket industry, with specifically Coles and Woolworths, which are both sort of copying each other in a way, using this organic greenwashing to hike up prices, which is terrible for the consumer.
And we can see this in the cost of living. There's been a crisis at the moment of just really serious sort of increase in that cost of living. And obviously that's all across the board, but every little thing in this especially is definitely sort of added to that.
I think it's important to note that the greenwashing it's not just pushing up prices of organic products, but because the greenwashing is pushing up the price of organic products, it's also affecting the prices of the non-organic products as well. And it's allowing them to push them up because the gap between the organic and non-organic is staying relatively stable, but they're both going up and they're using that organic sort of as like a cheat code, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. So they sort of see it as through that sort of advertising nudge. Like they can, by having that, consumers have that rule of thumb. They see organic, they're thinking, oh, great, this is healthy for me, this is ethical, like that's great, I'll get it. Even though in reality, it's no different to what might be sitting next to it on the shelf that isn't organic.
Yeah.
And then this is sort of because of that, like I said, they can push up the prices, and for the consumers and the producers, there's a bit of an adverse selection because the producers know more than what the consumers know about the quality of the product.
I think it's also important to note that before we get into the nitty-gritty of the solutions, the basis of the issue, like we're not going against organic products. Like organic products are still, there's lots of benefits to them, and there are good circumstances in which they're used and they do help the environment. So we're not arguing against that.
100%.
But we are arguing against the fact that there are examples where they're using that to, that goodness associated with it to hurt the consumer. But it's not always bad. It's not always bad.
And should we have a bit of a look at the sort of stakeholders that are affected by this? Like, we're talking about how the consumers are sort of negatively affected by, the prices being pushed up, but even we can look at the producers, like the ones who are actually making truly organic ingredients.
Yeah, those ones that are good that I was...
Exactly. They lose out because the sort of large retailers, they don't need to purchase their real organic products if they want to label something as organic. So they don't have to. Why would they pay the premium for these ingredients that are sourced from like ethical and sustainable practices? Why would they do that? There's no point. So they don't.
Yeah, there's really low regulations as well on certifications that we'll get into this a bit more in the solutions, but there's low regulations on these items essentially that are labeled as organic, which is meaning that bigger companies that are already are bigger and it's cheaper for them to produce more and stuff like that. They don't need such standards to reach this organic label essentially. So it's much easier for them to to produce these products that otherwise would be more tailored to smaller sort of producers.
Yeah, exactly. So then, but then even for those producers that are making the inorganic ingredients, like, well, organic, the way that we're sort of saying about it is the healthy and more ethical sort of practices, they're not observing the benefit. It's not like they're getting that increased profit from selling it as organic things. They're still selling it to these large retailers like Coles and Woolworths at their normal rates, but then they're just getting marketed as these organic products so that it's the retailers that ultimately get that sort of benefit from it.
Yeah.
And then, well, going on from that, like you said before, by having those organic products there, it sort of pushes the price of the regular goods up still. So it's not just the people who are buying the premium products that are facing that increase in price, it's them as well. So for households, especially sort of lower income ones, they're losing that purchasing power that they have because it's allocated more to the food and things and homewares and everything, like we were saying, that they just can't afford, and has led to this sort of crisis. Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, when you have like a $10 carton of eggs, for example, and it's labeled organic, so they can push the money up to $10. The supermarkets like Coles and Woolworths are going to be a lot more likely to supply the organic ones that cost $10 because they're going to be getting more demand from stuff that's labeled as organic, and it means that they're going to be getting less profit essentially from cheaper things that are not labeled as organic. So it's in Coles and Woolworths' best interests to have limited regulations on how easy it is for these products to become organic. Because they'd rather it be easy for them for it to become organic so that they get they can push the prices up further and make more money, and demand is slightly better for these products.
Yeah.
And it also means they sell less of the products which are cheaper and not organic because they make less money from them.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, it's difficult to know because we don't actually know, we don't know the statistics about it just because that sort of things that are kept behind, you know, the
Closed
companies.
doors.
Yeah, closed doors, exactly. But what we can know is the regulations that we have at the moment. And then after we can talk about sort of what they're trying to implement in order to, you know, decrease that market failure. In Australia, any product that's domestically produced and not going for export has a very loose definition of what organic sort of means. It's a very low % of the ingredients have to be recycled or organic, and that enables them to put that label on it, which ultimately is sort of what
the issue in lies
is
with
being misleading. Yeah,
with the limited government intervention and regulations, which is allowing them to just hike up the prices out of their minds. So what can the government be doing?
Well, really, it's just sort of refining that definition. So there's the regulations at the moment for exports are that they have to label things that meet their label it such as it meets the ingredients, like whatever the % is, they have to
say this is.
If they're going to say whatever organic, it has to actually be however much.
Yeah, more explicit in the labeling.
Yeah, so it seems that that's what they're going to try and do, and just sort of refine that definition. And I think that will work to decrease that imbalance of knowledge of the quality of the product between the consumers and the producers.
Yeah.
And I feel like that should start to sort of fight against the root of that issue.
It's interesting because do you think that this will reduce the amount of organic products that there, because I feel like this will reduce the amount of organic products that there are just in the market, which is not necessarily a good thing.
Well, I don't think it will reduce. When you say reduce the number of organic products, do you mean truly organic or organic as it's labeled?
Organic as it's labeled at the moment.
Well, 100%. And I think that will definitely happen because that's just, it's not like the producers that are selling them to the retailers who get marketed as organic. They're going to just say, oh, no, okay, we're going to swap to organic.
Yeah.
They're not going to fully change their practices and things like that.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing because what we'll be losing is the fake organic products, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And the ones that are truly organic are going to be willing to show the percentages of the organic things.
Exactly.
So it's actually not
So
bit of a
yeah,
deal.
probably you're going to see less products on your shelves that are organic, but you're going to still have the same amount of products that are truly organic, I think.
Yeah, and you're gonna be able to know that the products that you see are organic are actually truly organic, and you're gonna know that you're buying the right thing to do the right thing.
You can have that peace of mind.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's really good. I think that's important that consumers have, that the knowledge and the understanding of what they're actually purchasing is what they're going to get.
So there's a new supermarket that's coming into the mix.
Yes.
That is going to affect it.
This could affect it as well. Because at the moment we're talking about Coles and Woolworths, but I mean, at the same time, your smaller, lower market shares, they're following the same sort of trend. Your Aldi, your IGA, those supermarkets are doing the same thing. But from this new supermarket, Lulu Hypermarket, it's called. It's from the United Arab Emirates, and from what I've found, they've got quite strict regulations on that sort of thing. Yeah. So it would be interesting to see whether that will draw it back as well, or whether that will be the sort of thing that they'll just follow those sort of larger market shares.
Yeah, because like you touched on Aldi and IGA, they're following suit, and that's because because of the duopoly of Coles and Woolworths, Aldi and IGA are really struggling to compete as it is. So they're going to have to implement these strategies to make more money, as Coles and Woolworths are, because they're already struggling. So if they don't, and they do something that's better for the consumer and essentially worse for them because there's low regulations, they're going to start really struggling. So they don't have a choice.
But I mean, to be fair, I think we shouldn't put too much stress on this, because at the end of the day, I mean, you can look at IGA and Aldi again. That's sort of followed similar trends of, I think Aldi was early 2000s and it's only gained now about 10% market share.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Pretty small. Well, in comparison.
Relative.
It's still hundreds of stores across the country. But so I think we can't put all the eggs in the basket of hoping that this new supermarket will bring all of these new ideas into the market. But so I think we should really push for this legislation to be put through, that these regulations of organic is sort of stronger defined.
Yeah.
That would be what I think would be the most important.
And if people are struggling to, or if there's less organic products on the shelves and there's less options, then maybe it's better to have these truly organic products. And if there are less options, then the government can intervene and subsidize other options, and so we can maintain the amount of organic products, but also make sure that the amount of organic products that we have are actually of high quality and high standard, and actually the consumers have peace of mind in what they're buying.
And that's where that sort of challenge comes with redefining the organic. It's where do you draw the line? Because, I mean, really, what is organic? What is it? The practices? Is it the treatment of the how things are done? Like, where do we draw that line?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's the similar sort of thing with cage eggs and free range eggs, and then pasture raised eggs. And it's the similar sort of thing that these egg companies are doing, right? Because they're labeling it as free range eggs, but they're only free range within it's basically the same as cage, because they're in this tiny little barn, they're all cramped together. And then you've got caged eggs, which are, at least they have their own space almost in a way. It's almost no different. And then you've got pasture raised, which are actually these.
They're pretty
and
good.
The government has actually decided to make sure that there's this labeling of pasture raised, and there are regulations around you can't call it pasture raised unless they've actually got open space.
Exactly.
So they could do a sort of similar thing there maybe.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously that was a bit more straightforward just because that's a single industry. But we're talking across such a range of products. It's not sort of one thing fits all. Like, you can't talk about whether they've got a cage or not when you're talking about recycled plastic.
Of course not, yeah.
It just sort of doesn't apply the same way. So I think that'll be the challenge, and that will take the time. But once they can sort of sift through that and find this really good definition and really strong, even if it was more of a disclosure thing, like the companies have to say what they're doing. But it doesn't have to be on the packaging, but as long as they make it pretty open to find for the public, then I think that could be a really interesting thing. Just anything that would really bring that knowledge away from just the producer and give it to the consumer as well. I think that will try and fight the root of the problem that we're observing how it's affecting cost of living and things like that.
So there you go. Greenwashing.
Yeah. So it's going to be, in the short term, probably very little is going to happen. And families are going to struggle. But if change can happen, then
people get involved.
Yeah. Get a bit of, spread the word. But yeah, if we can figure that out, then it should have some really beneficial impacts. So
On the consumer. Perfect.
Yep.
All right. Thanks for coming, Archie.
You too, Bailey.